On behalf of Chennai Mission Pittsburgh, we welcome you all for the second session of our wonderful discourse on Chapter 12 by Puja Swami Shivatmanandaji. I know we all were totally enthralled by Swamiji yesterday. So, with no further delay, I will humbly ask Swamiji to continue with the journey further into Bhakti Yoga. Swamiji, over to you.
ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् We are seeing chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. And yesterday I just gave a very brief synopsis of the previous chapter to make a little link to continue with the teaching. Bhagavan Krishna is now trying to answer a question of Arjuna. Arjuna asks, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktasvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yogavittamaha. So, hey Keshava, tesham, the Saguna Bhakta and the Nirguna Bhakta, ke yogavittamaha, which one of these two is the best? Which one is better? Which one is the best? Is the question asked by Arjuna. After seeing the Vishwarupa Darshan, now he wants to know what kind of devotee is considered to be an exalted devotee. So, based upon that, I had given a little introduction to understand what is a Saguna Bhakta, Nirguna Bhakta. Bhakti over here in this chapter is defined in a very unique way. We think of Bhakti as some music which transports us to a different plane. listening to a katha of Bhagavan, which transports us to a different plane. For most people, when a bhakta is named, Meera or someone comes to their mind, the one whose mind is completely devoted to Bhagavan. But what bhakti is definitely an exalted emotion, feeling, but that exalted emotion and feeling transforms our action. If the emotion or the feeling within is incapable of transforming our actions, then it cannot be called a bhakti. Bhakti irrigates our living. And that is why I had given the synopsis about the two types of karmis, the two types of upasaks, and finally arriving at this one jnani. In these 5 stages, I had given this interpretation. The first type of a karmi, a person who does karma, is sakama karmi. So at least a person is inspired to stay on the path of dharma. This is the first type of devotee, the one who sticks on to the path of righteousness, worships Bhagavan, and slowly, those actions transforms the inner core of that person. And one fine day, slowly the person metamorphoses themselves into a nishkama karmi. And it is all because of the proper emotions and feelings which are employed by the equipment, the mind, which is inspired to stay on the path of righteousness. He or she treads the path of righteousness, does right in the society, does right to the family, does right to themselves, and evolves in the sakam, and eventually arrives in nishkam, that Lord has given to me, I need to give back to Bhagavan. Now all actions are done for the sake of pleasing Paramatma. And when all actions are done in the remembrance of Paramatma and only to please the Lord, at that point in time, such a person develops prasad buddhi. The mana buddhi complex over here in itself has attained some amount of inner satisfaction and gratitude, prasad, that Bhagavan has given. Let me give, let me serve. And selflessly, in whichever way, shape, size, form they can serve, they will serve. It is not just giving money, giving time, giving education, giving help, uh, volunteering, utilizing good words to uplift others when they are in need, when they are in dire need of help, so on, so forth. Such a person rises. Then, after enabling themselves in action, there is still yet more and more evolution of the inner equipment. It grows in subtlety. And the subtlety of the mind is measured in pervasiveness, how much it pervades, how deep it enters. So now that mind wants to enter further deep, but the outside world it cannot enter. So necessarily it has to enter the inner world. And this is the third type of devotee, where They spend exclusive time with themselves within the realm of their mind in worship of Bhagavan. An external worship is done, but quickly the external worship with great devotion takes the devotee into the inner flight of dwelling time with the devotee at the level of mind. So, Ishvara Dhyan is what this person embarks upon. The journey that they embark upon is the Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam, meditating upon the formed Bhagavan. Because the mind is exploring the subtle realms. And Ishvara cannot be known via hearing, smelling, tasting, seeing, touching, all these things they have tried. In puja, everything is employed. For hearing, the Nada bell is there. For seeing, the Vigraha is there. Smelling, agarbatti is there. Tasting, Naivedyam is there. Touching, flowers are there. So all the upacharas are employing all the senses. And when the senses are employed for all the Aupacharika puja, when it comes to an end, the mind effortlessly sits even for 5 minutes. But for 5 minutes, the mind enters the realm of Krishna, Goloka, Vaikuntha Loka, Shiva Loka, Saketa Loka, whichever Loka the deity takes the jiva to, they quietly dwell in the vicinity of Bhagavan. And such a great upasak is born that bhakti transforms action, saguna to nirguna, and now quietly the equipment is going within. And such a great devotee, one fine day when they open their eyes and when they are looking at this world I mentioned, they effortlessly glide from Ek Rupa Dhyan, meditating on this one Saguna Ishwar Dhyanam, to this Saguna Swarupa Dhyanam of this Bhumirapo Nalovayu Khammano Buddhirevacha Hankaritiyam me Binna Prakruti Ashtadha. And this is my lower nature, Arjuna. So now the Apara Prakruti and the Para Prakruti. Para Prakruti is Yayedam Dharyate Jagat. But Apara Prakruti is the eight form with these five great elements, Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhi, Ahankar, these eightfold Prakruti. Now the person transforms their action in this world. Such a transformed person will only do good to Prakriti, the lower Prakriti, which is the lower nature of Bhagavan. And such an evolved soul who doesn't injure anything, doesn't harm anything, does not create any conflict, but is willing to work with the lower form of Paramatma, because the understanding is that this is the lower nature of my Bhagavan. My Bhagavan has arrived as this Jagat. How can I mistreat anyone in this Jagat, any being in this Jagat, any form of this Jagat? Such a divine upasak rises, and such a person now has gone through so many stages. And look at the bhakti. Bhakti came out as karma. Bhakti came out as nishkam karma. Bhakti came out as worship of the Lord. Bhakti came out as meditating upon Lord. Bhakti came out as meditating upon this entire universe as Paramatma. Do you see the levels of bhakti? We cannot just say sitting in a temple with a Shruti box and singing is bhakti. That is also bhakti. True, that is bhakti. Spending quiet time in the corner in the temple doing mantra japa, singing some nadopasna, omkar upasana. So many things can be done. But bhakti transforms us at the level of our karma. And if that doesn't happen, then there is a stalemate in where the bhakta abides. There is no lateral growth in the upasak, in the bhakta, in the devotee. For the devotee to rise, the devotee has to rise in all aspects. It cannot be that the mind is filled with devotion, but the actions are disgusting. That's not a bhakta. If a mind is filled with devotion, necessarily the action is congruent to it. The action is in line with the exalted thoughts. So, bhakti is an attitude which results in transformation. And it is the transformed being that Bhagavan is interested in. So when in the 3rd chapter, Bhagavan had said, Dvivida Nishtha, Dvivida and then Nishtha, one abidance. But that one abidance is in 2 steps. So these are the 2 steps. The first step is for the karma yogis, the karma yoga, which is sakam karma and nishkam karma. So each one of these steps lined up properly. So there is only one path. There are no 2 paths. Path is only one. That path has to evolve. One has to result into 2, 2, then 3, 3, after 3, 4, and after that, 5th. So now Arjuna is asking, oh, which one is better? Is 2 better than 3? We cannot say that, because to arrive at 3, one has to go through 1 and 2. We cannot say 2 is better because one has to go through 1 to come to 2. But yet at 2, it is also incomplete because 3, 4, and 5 still awaits. The journey is not complete. So we cannot say 1 is better than 2. We cannot say 2 is better than 3. We cannot say 3 is better than 4. We cannot say 4 is better than 5. Because it is the evolution of the jiva. And thus, this question, like I said, is to be understood properly. And Bhagavan has understood. So obviously he's Bhagavan. So his answer is appropriate. He will not say that Saguna is better. He will not say Nirguna is better. And that is what we discussed. So one question came, and the question is, when you say Dvivida Nishtha, where Dviva is duality, but Lord uses Nishtha in singular, did he mean both paths lead to the same path in the end? Or there is only one path? Yes, there are no 2 paths which lead to one end. No, there's only one path, and we all have to walk that same one path. We are all in different stages of evolution. That's all. There is no choice over here, because the equipment has to evolve. This is the only standard of measurement. How evolved is the equipment? So we all have to walk the same path to evolve. The antakarana, the inner equipment, has to necessarily be incubated in spiritual practices so that it can metamorphose into a higher spiritual way of living. So that is question. I have heard that chapters 1 through 6 is Twampada, 6 to 12 is Tatpada, 13 to 18 is uh, Asipada, explaining the Tattvamasi Mahavakya. And you mentioned karma, upasana, jnana respectively. Please help me understand how they overlap. Yes, it is true. The first 6 chapter is tvam, dhau. But how are we going to fix ourselves? Through karma. So the spiritual practice given to the jiva is karma. Now, the second set of 6 chapters deal with the Vedic aphorism, Dhau. Who is this Dhau? Paramatma. But what is the formula for knowing Paramatma? That is Upasana. Without Upasana, that Ishvara is not known. And what kind of Upasana? First, we are going to have to, after rendering service and after quieting the equipment, now we are making the equipment subtle by upasana of one God. And that upasana is Eka Rupa Ishvara Dhyanam. I meditate on my one Bhagavan Krishna, one Bhagavan Rama, one Bhagavan Shiva, one Bhagavan Devi, whoever it is. This is to know tat, that. So the upasana of knowing that is meditation. So saguna upasana. Once that is done, then the universal form is to be known. Which universal form? Are Arjuna is lucky that he has Bhagavan Krishna over there showing the universal form. But for us, Bhagavan has said, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu Khammano Buddhirevacha. That Arjuna, this eightfold Prakriti, when you see the 5 great elements and the mind, intellect, and ego manifested in various beings in our own home, in our own family, in our own society, in our own country, how is our vartanam, how is our parivartanam, how is our transaction with them? We have to improve that, and that is a very rich growth when our transaction is nobilized in this world. Okay, so yes, this question, and then of course Asi is Gnan, the fifth one, which Bhagavan himself will talk about over here in this chapter itself. Continuing what Bhagavan's answer now. Okay. Shloka number 2. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Mano ye mam Nityayukta upasate Shraddaya parayopetaha Te me yukta tamamataha. Very beautiful over here. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Bhagavan now answers. What does Bhagavan answer? So the question of Arjuna, Bhagavan doesn't say that your question is wrong and I'm not going to answer that question. Bhagavan doesn't say that. Bhagavan is full with love and compassion for the devotee. He wants the devotee to rise. So not one negativity is there in 701 shloka of Bhagavad Gita. Imagine. He again and again, Arjuna asks questions. Bhagavan doesn't lose faith in him. This is a sign of a fantastic teacher. He wants to inspire Arjuna. So Bhagavan says, Ye bhaktaha, you have to supply bhaktaha from the previous shloka. So, ye bhaktaha nityayuktaha parayo parayopetaha shraddhayaha shraddhayaha upas te मयि मनः aveshya mam upasate. So I am reading it in prose order to make sense. That's why I will explain. Don't worry about it. So Bhagavan says, these devotees, which devotees? These nitya yuktaha, those who are steadfast in their devotion, not in fits and start. These devotees have done karma yoga. These devotees have, through the practice of sakam karma, and then after that nishkam karma, they have acquired dexterity in action. That is called yoga karma sukaushalam. A great ability to apprehend action in hand and to produce action beautifully. In all that they do, they leave a fantastic signature that a devotee has done this action. We could see that in our Pujya Gurudev, the letters that he wrote, the way in which he folded the letter, the way in which he placed the letter inside the envelope, the way he sealed it, the way he put a stamp on it, address, the return address, the sender's address. There is a delight in doing action. There is no minuscule action. Whether it be cooking, cleaning, because now they have understood all actions bear insignia of my presence. And now it is the devotee that is doing it. And there is no frowny face at any action. Whatever action arrives on their door, knocking on the door, they happily, willfully open the door, welcome that atithi karma, tend to the needs of the karma properly with proper upacharas. That is called nitya yuktaha. Very deep word. So much can be said about, the dexterity that these people have acquired in doing action, because they have risen above action. They abide in awareness. Through doing action, now they are seeing Bhagavan. And karma is a way through which we can access the Lord. So nitya yuktaha, minimum they have to be nishkama karma yogis, turned into now bhaktaha. So they are devotees. What kind of devotees? Eka Rupa Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara, Dhyana Upasakaha. They are the fantastic meditators of their own Ishtadevata. They offer worship and they meditate on Bhagavan. Such upasakas, and then how are they qualified? Parayaha shraddhayaha upetaha. Imagine, I talked about this nitya yuktaha. They are yoked with action properly with yoga karma sukaushalam. But how is this yoking part coming to it? It is coming from paraya shraddhaha, absolute faith, great faith. Why? Have they seen Bhagavan? No. Do they believe in Bhagavan? Of course. And the belief is, I have not seen my Lord now, yet, but I am going to see my Lord before this body falls. They are completely yoked with a firm faith that my Bhagavan is going to come. That is Parashraddha, not just Shraddha. Imagine day after day, Shabariji collecting berries in the forest, waiting for Rama. Did one day she said, I'm not feeling well, I won't collect? No. Her exalted faith, Rama is going to come bus. And I need to be prepared for when Rama comes, I have to offer him Naivedyam. That Paraya Shraddhaha, Upetaha, endowed with it. Has she met Rama? No. Does she know what Rama looks like? Absolutely not. Matanga Rishi has just given her the Tarak mantra, just chant Rama's name, bas. She never went back to question her own guru. Are, this mantra, who is this person? When is he going to come? How is he going to look like? What will he tell me? What are the benefits of meeting him? Are, she is a devotee. She does not have to ask any of these questions. Why? Because her guru has said this person will come. And if guru has said, that means he will come. And he will come for the right reasons. And it will make my life better. Finished. This is a great type of devotee. Her Nishkama Seva was completely cleaning the ashram of Matanga Rishi every day. And all she got in return was this mantra. But the faith is what brought Rama to Shabariji. That Rishi taught Vedanta to all the students sitting in the ashram. Did Ram Bhagavan come to all the students of the Vedanta? Ram Bhagavan came for Shabariji. She is who? A Sakara Upasak of Bhagavan, purified in the frying pan of Karma Yoga. And such an exalted devotee over here, Nitya Yuktaha Parayaha Shraddha Paraya Shraddayaha, these people Mai Manaha Aveshya, Manaha Mayeva Aveshya. They take their mind to me continuously. Such a person, Arjuna, Manaha Mayaveshya Mam Upasate. These people with firm faith transformed their life with utmost karma. Nityayuktaha Parayaha Shraddaya with great faith, Manaha Mayeva aveshya, me and me alone. Such a person, mai aveshya manaha mam upasate. These people, they meditate upon me. And what does he say? Bhagavan says, me mataha yuktatamaha. According to me, such people are yuktatamaha. Bhagavan says, in my opinion, these are the best among the yogis. Now, Bhagavan did not answer that this is better than that. He gave this answer. Arjuna is asking, who is better, Karma Yogi, a Saguna Upasak, or is it a Nirguna Upasak? Bhagavan, who is better? And look what Bhagavan said. Bhagavan said the Saguna Upasak who leads their mind continuously to me, such an Upasak, according to me, is yuktatamaha. He did not say is better than the other. He says he is very well established in yoga. Yuktatamaha. This is the answer Bhagavan gave. Now, in shloka number 2, Sakara Upasak, the one who, so the third type, first is Sakama Karmi, second Nishkama Karmi, third Saguna Upasak, Eka Ishwar Dhyan. That is who is talked about over here. So now Bhagavan has said this person is better. So now if Bhagavan said this person is very well integrated, Yuktatamaha, he has said. He didn't say that he's better than the others. That to reach up to over there, Bhagavan knows how difficult it is to come to Ishwar Dhyanam. Imagine to meditate upon Paramatma day in, day out, without losing faith. Bhagavan says such an upasak is a well-established one. Otherwise, many people have started mantra japa and said, Swami ji, kya kare? 15 saal ke liye mantra jap kiya, kuch bhi hua nahi. I know people who clear out their altar, put everything in a box and put everything underneath the bed. Why? Because 10 years of mantra jap, kuch nahi hua. 10 years of mantra jap, nothing happened. So poor Bhagavan has to go in a box underneath the bed. So that Shraddha is tested. Bhagavan is testing our faith. At the end of the day, faith is all we have. Forget about Bhagavan. When we go to bed, it is faith that I'm going to wake up tomorrow. We don't know if we are going to wake up. Or we don't know if we are going to wake up to a peaceful world. So much can happen in 8 hours when we go to bed and wake up. It is only faith which is the connecting link between today and tomorrow. That's all. In the manifested world, so much faith is required. Then what to talk about the spiritual world? The spiritual world, how much faith is required? So Bhagavan says, Paraya Shraddayaha, such people, Maya Veshamano Yemam, Nityayukta upasate. Te me yuktatamaha mataha. According to my understanding, yuktatamaha. They are very well rooted in their spiritual practice, and such people are amazing, are worthy of notice. You know, if we reach this level in our spirituality, you know how much we can achieve in the material world? Because discipline is what Bhagavan has recognized over here. Bhagavan has recognized discipline. When we say Nitya Yuktaha, I talked about Yoga Karma Sukhaushalam, dexterity in action. How much such a person applies themselves in this world of plurality. That is worthy of being praised over here. And that is what Bhagavan is saying, that such a person who has integrated action and integrated the mind intellect complex by supplying a good amount of faith to boost one's own ability to yoke with the action, to yoke with a particular action, which is the signature of a human being who's alive. And that, Bhagavan says, is a bhakti. This is the first tier of bhakti Bhagavan has recognized as Sakara Upasaka Bhakti. Bhagavan has Sakara, along with the name, along with the form, bhakti, devotion to the Lord with name and form. I know I'm using a lot of Sanskrit words, and some people are trying to follow with it. It just from habit I'm using it, but I will be more mindful of making sure I supply English words for understanding. Now Bhagavan is going to talk about Nirakara Upasak, the fourth type of devotee. The third and the fourth type of devotee Bhagavan talked about in the previous shloka. The third and the fourth, both. Because when the third type of devotee, one Ishwar Dhyan, and when that Dhyan is complete, the person looks at this whole world as the Saguna Swarup of Bhagavan. So now comes the Nirakara Upasak. This is where we see Bhagavan talking about the pure Gnani, the fifth one. Okay. Ye tvaksharamanirdesyam avyaktam pariupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutasthamachalam dhruvam sanniyen. I'll continue that later. Let me explain third first. So now Bhagavan is talking about the fifth type of devotee. And the fifth type of devotee is actually a Gnani. Bhagavan in 7th chapter had said, Gnani tu Atmaiva reme matam. Gnani and me actually are one. Chaturvida bhajante mam. Bhagavan had said 4 different types of devotees worship me. Arth, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Gnani. The one who is in pain, Arth. Artharthi, the one who is seeker of the material benefits. Jignasu, the one who is inquiring into who is Paramatma? How did I get all this? Who fulfills my promises? Where is Lord? How can I attain Lord? So naturally, the inquisitiveness, the jignasu becomes a mumukshu, a desire to be liberated. So he goes in search and becomes Gnani. And who is Gnani? The one who has attained moksha. So this Gnani, upon doing these 4 practices, this person has come to the level of abidance in knowledge. So this abidance in this knowledge is what Bhagavan is talking about. And this Nirguna Upasak, which Arjuna had asked about, ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha, and those who are meditating on this imperishable Brahman, that imperishable Brahman, that nameless, formless truth, that devotee and the one who is meditating upon the name and the formed Bhagavan, Saguna Bhakta, of these which are better. So Bhagavan answered that the one who has gone through Saguna Bhakti, all these various steps, to arrive at that itself is great. And such people are amazing. Now Bhagavan is addressing the Nirguna Bhakta. So what does he say? Ye tu aksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam sarvatragama achintyam kutastham achalam dhruvam pariupasate. So these are, if we read all these words, these are the Upanishadic words. These words are used in Upanishads. And what do they mean? We will see. But those people, Arjuna, who meditate upon all this Bhagavan as the nameless, formless, and the nameless, formless is indicated over here as Aksharam, Anirdeshyam, Avyaktam, Sarvatragama, Achintyam, Kutastham, Achalam, Dhruvam. With all these words, 8 words are used over here. These 8 words are indicating the Nirguna Upasak, Pariupasate. And furthermore, I will chant 4th shloka as well, because the thought is completed over here. Sanniyamyendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayaha te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. So on top of all these, Pariupasate, meditating upon these 8 different words which indicate the absolute, nameless, formless, on top of that, Sanniyamyendriya gramam, they have attained great control over the senses. sarvatra samabuddhayaha, in all places, in all times, equanimous of intellect. And then Bhagavan says, te prapnuvanti mameva, they attain me. They attain me and me alone. So what does that mean? They attain moksha is what is indicated over here. They attain moksha. And these are sarvabhuta hite rataha. These people are the well-wishers of everyone. So we saw Arjuna's question, Bhagavan, who is better, Saguna Upasak or Nirguna Upasak? So Bhagavan says, Saguna Upasak is very amazing person. Bhagavan says, te me yukta tamaha mataha. According to my understanding, they are very well established. So they are best among the ones who have treaded the path of yoga. And Nirguna Upasak, Bhagavan says, they attain me. So that's what he says. He doesn't answer the question as to which one is better. He says, Saguna are best among the ones who are following the yoga, and Nirguna are the ones who come to me. What a fantastic answer Bhagavan gives. Now Bhagavan will elaborate upon what this bhakta is. So, Nirguna Upasak. What are the Nirguna Upasak words which Bhagavan has used? Akshara, Anirdeshyam, Sarvatragama, Achintyam, Avyaktam, Kutastham, Achalam, and Dhruvam. Now, I will take them in an order which will allow you to make sense. So I will rearrange them. So the first one I'm taking is Avyaktam. And the reason I'm taking is because one by one, I'm taking this equipment to help you understand. Vyakta meaning manifest. Avyakta meaning unmanifest. So absolute, when we say nirguna, that nirguna is the unmanifest, and the unmanifest, our senses, the five senses, can only apprehend in this world the manifested world. So by saying unmanifest, what Bhagavan is saying is, Arjuna, this Nirguna Brahman is not available for senses. So Indriya Agochara Ishvara. That is the first word for the ones who meditate. So the ones who are meditating, they meditate not on the form, because the name and the form are objectifiable by the five senses: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. The hearing, the touching, the seeing, the tasting, and the smelling. These five senses give us the understanding of this world. But by saying Avyakta, these five senses will not be able to reveal Paramatma, and yet these upasaks meditate beyond the realm of the senses. That is what is indicated by the word Avyakta. So that is at the level of the senses, not available for the senses. The second word. So someone may say, okay, if it is not available for the senses, mind is considered to be the sixth sense, and feelings and emotions, the feeling of love is a very subtle feeling which can be known, but it cannot be seen, smelled, heard, tasted, touched. So maybe the mind can. So the second word comes to negate the emotions and the feeling aspect. So the second one is achintyam. So avyaktam, indriya agochara. Now achintyam, mind has the ability to think. The formulas of physics and chemistry, difficult for a manifested form to see and to process, but nonetheless mind is capable of processing volume and temperature and radius and so on and so forth, uh, and it is capable of processing. So Bhagavan is saying achintyam, this mind cannot go and capture Bhagavan in a formula, in an idea, in a thought, in an emotion, in a feeling. Paramatma cannot be captured at this realm. So, avyaktam, achintyam. The next word is then intellect. Intellect is even subtler. And intellect produces ideologies based upon some words and a deep thought process. So over here, anirdeshyam, words cannot define. So the intellect which goes in search of words to define, it cannot be defined. So all that is also mentioned over here, that shabda agochara, buddhi agochara. So indriya agochara, mano agochara, buddhi agochara. Over here, avyaktam, achintyam, anirdeshyam. See, very systematic teaching. Because when we meditate, we with the senses are all under control, so we give up the world of name and form, but then the mind goes in search of name and form. So Krishna, and Krishna is the name, and then there is a Krishna form. He is wearing the yellow clothes, and he has a flute in his hand, he has a peacock feather, and all those things are there. So the mind can think about Saguna Ishwar, and the intellect can provide stories to keep the mind held in the thought of Bhagwan. The intellect will provide all stories from Bhagavatam to keep the mind inspired, to keep the mind in meditation on Bhagavan Krishna. But for Nirguna, for the person who is meditating and they have risen above Eka Ishwar, then Aneka Ishwar. Now, this meditation is Arupa Ishwar. There's no form, nameless, formless meditation. How am I going to do? Thus, Bhagavan has supplied all these words. Avyaktam, achintyam, anirdeshyam, aprameyam. There is no praman over here. Anuman and Arthapatti, Shabda praman, nothing over here. That's why in Vishnu Sahasranam also we say Aprameyo Hrishikesho Padmanabho Maraprabhu Anirdeshya Pushriman. So all these words are also there in Vishnu Sahasranam, and it is describing Bhagavan with Chaturbhuj Narayan. Sa Shanka Chakram, sa Kirita Kundalam, sa Pita Vastram, Sarasiru Hekshanam, Sahara Vakshastala Shobhi Kaustubam Namami Vishnum, Shirasa Chaturbhujam. So form is there, and yet in Vishnu Sahasranam we also Achintyam also comes over there. Anirdeshava Pushriman. The one who cannot be indicated is over here Anirdeshyam. So now when we evolve in our spiritual sadhana, the physical has to be quietened, physical prakriti. The subtle prakriti has to be made even subtler. And it is the one who has made this prakriti so subtle that it has just come to me. Bhagavan says, such a devotee has now arrived to me. And that is why he says over here, Te prapnuvanti mameva. They have attained me. So I will continue with this thought process. I'll finish all the remaining 5 of them. But it's a build-up of a thought process to come to Nirguna. And that is the beauty over here. And if we can hold our attention over there, that itself is what Bhagavan is looking as the best among the yogis. Whether we can hold the form of Bhagavan Vishnu, or whether in silence we have dissolved this equipment in Nirguna. But knowledge is required. And he will say certain things about Nirguna Upasak, which is what this chapter very beautifully presents to us proper sadhanas as well. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.